Hello, my friend. Welcome to the Business Leadership Today podcast. I'm your host, Matt Tenney. In this podcast, we sit down with successful founders, CEOs, and other senior leaders and ask them about the most important problem they've solved so both you and I can learn innovative, proven approaches to solving the most important problems in business today. My guest today is Devan Kline, the founder and CEO of Burn Bootcamp, a health and fitness franchise with over 350 locations that aims to ignite global health transformation by empowering women to maximize the quality of their lives. In this episode, Devan is going to share his insights on how to scale an organization when you think you've plateaued and you can't scale anymore. I hope you are as excited as I am about learning from Devan. Devan, thanks so much for taking the time to be here with me today on Business Leadership Today.
Yeah, Matt. Yeah, definitely. No, thank you for that introduction. You nailed it, dude. It's perfect.
Oh, great. Well, I'm sure there's some room for improvement, but I appreciate your enthusiasm. Thanks, Devan. So, hey, if you can kick us off, I know a little bit about your organization, and I'm very impressed with what I know so far. But I'd love to kind of hear like the origin story, and I'm sure listeners would as well. If you could talk us through how did you come to found and for a long time serve as the CEO of Burn Bootcamp?
Yes, my wife and I founded Burn Bootcamp in 2012 after I got fired, if you will. A better term might be released from the San Francisco Giants. And Morgan, she was climbing up the corporate ladder at Kellogg's. And so, she gets an opportunity to come to Charlotte. We were in Naples, Florida at the time after I got released from my contract. And we fly up to Charlotte and we love it. And so we choose Charlotte. Charlotte's our destiny. And I'm going to open up a gym, but nobody's going to give me a lease because baseball players don't make any money. And I'm a kid and I don't have any financial backing. I don't come from money. Morgan doesn't either. And so we sublease and opened up gyms in a parking lot. And that's how we started, Morgan and I, in 2012. We did 5 in North Charlotte. But that isn't where our relationship started. It actually started when we were 12 years old in Battle Creek, Michigan, which is Cereal City. We're proud of our hometown. We now have a gym back there, actually.
Oh,
And,
cool.
that's the company Morgan worked for, Kellogg's, which was founded in Battle Creek, Michigan, aka Cereal City. And so, yeah, we met when we were 12, and who would have known that, we were destined to, fit like hand in glove in terms of being entrepreneurs together and being husband and wife.
Yeah, that doesn't happen very often. It's cool when it does. So I imagine it's been quite a ride. You went from subleasing, opening gyms in parking lots to
Yeah.
now you've got 350 locations. And I just have to think probably the wildest part was for those listening here, and this is being recorded in 2023, the COVID pandemic is probably not too far back in our memory banks. And I'm just thinking, holy cow, you run gyms where people go to train in person. That probably didn't go very well during the COVID pandemic, right?
No, it didn't. And somehow, one of the things that I believe every human being should do is, have some type of demanding training regimen in their life that demands more out of them than they can demand out of themselves. Like, what that does for us as human beings is just fundamental. It's universal. I think that's why Burn has grown. But when you strip that away, and you can have this community, we had to go basically shut down all 275 gyms at the time. This is in 2020 in March. And, it takes 8 months before we get all of them back open. The curve was supposed to flatten and all those good things. Well, we don't dwell here at Burn Brands and Burn Bootcamp. Like, we have a championship mindset. And what we do is we make our worst day our best day. And so we, instead of dwelling, because we weren't able to sell new units. Nobody's buying. The
Right.
capital markets are all drying up like immediately. Nobody knows what's going to go on. It's all uncertain, right? The whole thing. And so what we knew what we could do is control what we could control. That's the only certainty we had. We can control our attitude. We can control our effort. We can control what we believed in. And what we believed in was that this time happened for a reason. We believe that. We believe that we were stuck in this pandemic trap where gyms and bars somehow get linked together as the best thing and the worst thing a human being can do for themselves. It's like all chaos is broken loose in our industry. What can we control? Go rebuild the engine. right? We're at 275 gyms. We have hundreds in the pipeline. Like, our unit economics are good, but they were not world-class yet. We had an opportunity to grow each individual location's annual unit volume. And so we did. We went to work. Our team put their heads down during that whole time. None of us came up for air very much at all. And we built the Burn operating system, is now the operating infrastructure that our entire system, this would be, a couple hundred franchise partners, 80 of us here at HQ. We have company-owned gyms that are a part of that makeup as well. And all of our franchise partners and their teams now have this common language, because we all have the common mission, but it's like the common vision didn't match the engine that was, we needed to have a rocket ship to do what I wanted to do, which was build 10,000 locations in the world. And then the only place, metaphorically speaking, to develop would be the moon, right? We need a rocket ship to get there, right? And so we looked around and said, hey, we don't have a rocket engine. And so we took our time, and it really paid off. And the entire team made us closer. Championship teams, when adversity hits, we either get closer together. The championship teams get closer together, and those that just aren't going to make it, they're just not going to make the cut, not going to make the playoffs, they'll spread apart when adversity hits. And so what I learned a lot during the pandemic, number one, is that you can control your outcomes. You can control what you work on. Number two is that you can test your culture, right? You can test the people that are with you. And, those are important lessons.
Absolutely. Now, surprisingly, though, as I got to chat with you a little bit here before we started the podcast episode, that was not the most important problem you solved. So this is kind of cool to me. So I mean, it's to me, how do you survive when your revenue goes from whatever it is to zero and stays that way for 8 months? That's a pretty important problem to solve, which many business owners had to solve a few years ago. But you ran up against an even bigger problem as you're coming out of the pandemic and you're trying to reach this vision. So can you tell me more about that? Like, what was the problem that you ran against?
Yeah, the problem I ran against is called self-awareness. And it's that moment in time when you realize that you're in your own way. It's, I think, an ultimate peak form of humility. And that's something I wasn't born and raised with. That's not an environment that I was around. I come from a background, poverty stricken, my father in and out of jail and out of prison. My uncle's the same way. Really fending for myself, on food stamps and welfare, just since I was, a young boy, like 12 years old. I mean, I loved having money and I loved working for money. I didn't know what the word entrepreneur meant, but I did, in retrospect, create my first snow shoveling franchise when I was 12 or 13 years old, knocking on doors, 20-minute snow removal. I'd have my buddies come behind with snow shovels and we'd flip driveways in 20 minutes, split it 3 ways. I had that need, that hunger kind of built in, that pain built in the way, that I grew up. And so we took that mindset and we take that mindset, the entrepreneurial mindset, into the business. And what we realized is at a certain point, we needed professional management. I realized this about 3 years before we did it, but the pandemic made it crystal clear to me that I needed professional management in place. I'm an entrepreneur. That's what I know. That's my environment created, I think, a lot of that DNA, a lot of that attitude toward wanting to be a fire starter, but not necessarily a good fire keeper. And I was the CEO. And what happens with the CEO title is you have to be methodical, chronological, thorough, detailed. You have to have great accountability, follow-up, management skills, all of these things that I think that I'm okay at, but I'm not at the level that my company needs me to be at. I don't want to focus on my own weaknesses and try to turn those into strengths. Being well-rounded has a certain place in the world, but at the end of the day, it's those people that make a skill that they have, a strength that they have, that they make that in essence look like magic to other people. Like, kind of like, how the hell do you do that so well? Like, the awe around Elon Musk. Like, how does this guy do these things so well? And so I think every great entrepreneur has a little bit of that sense to them. And what we needed to do was to hire a CEO. And thankfully,
So you were
thankfully,
so you realized it became, you knew this before the pandemic, right? You could see signs
yeah,
that
yeah,
what was keeping you from realizing your vision and scaling as fast as you wanted to was you. You know, you had certain strengths that were really important, but you had others that were limiting the organization from scaling, right? So you started to see signs about this before the pandemic, right? What were some of the signs that were starting to tip you off that the reason you weren't growing as fast as you wanted to
oh,
was
this
because
is
you were
super
getting in the
easy. No,
way?
this is super easy. And it's, you nailed it. You must have been somewhere in this realm before, like I think a lot of people have. Well, what we had at the top of our organization was a CEO and a COO. And it's also Devan and Morgan Kline, right, who are also married and who also fundamentally share half the responsibility for the organization. And so what happened was we have a support matrix in our organization, meaning that the left side of the org chart is the VPs are charged of the P&Ls of the revenue streams in the products. And then the other side, the right side of the org chart, are the support side, right? And support is, cross-laterally focused, on each one of those different revenue streams to support the entire business as a whole. Okay, so now you've got 11 VPs, and 11 VPs are both coming to mom and dad and being like, dude, we've got to do this and that, and we're making decisions up here. We're not talking to each other, right? Morgan and Devin are not talking to each other. We are just making decisions, because we got to go fast, right? So we got to push that responsibility down. We've got to spread that responsibility across the organization. We call it a cascading message. And what happens is now that there's 6 layers in the organization, we push those cascading messages down. Our VPs do their job, and then our directors and our people managers do their job, and everybody gets the message. But all of a sudden, the message for half the organization is Devans and half the organization is Morgan's. And we waste twice the amount of time, because now when there's disagreement on the front lines of the organization, that's got to cascade back up, and we've got to figure out what to do at the top. And that just takes time. And so by Morgan, I picked up a book called, what was it called? Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman, the EOS entrepreneur. He does traction and the whole model. BOS is the burn operating system, is largely inspired by what they do. And so we realized that we couldn't create an operational infrastructure and that common language that our common mission needed. So we needed this burn operating system. That's what we spent the pandemic doing, right? And then we needed a leader of this operating system who could actually integrate it. And that was not me. That leader was not me.
How do you know? Like, is this just not your thing? Like the implementation of high.
Well, you've got to say, what do you like doing the most, right? Because you can, I have like a love, like, half must do, nice to do mindset. And I categorize these things as I go through my crazy notebook. And it's like, what can I and only I do? B, what is important but somebody else can do? C, what's crap that doesn't even need to be there at all, that's just getting in the way? And you go and you start to categorize. And what happens is you naturally start to put off the things that you don't necessarily enjoy doing. You'll do it because, you're the entrepreneur and eating dirt is part of the job. And so you just do what it takes to make it happen. But is it serving the business in the best way? Do you have the resources available to bring somebody aboard or put somebody in a position that can serve the business in a better way? Meaning, if you realize that you're not a good people manager, meaning that you don't like sending them emails 48 hours ahead of a meeting with a documented agenda, and
Right.
you don't like spending that half an hour super efficient and precise, and you don't intrinsically love the joy of seeing somebody, walk out, or walk out like happy, or the pain sometimes of like growing yourself in the moment, because you have to have lots of hard conversations in that setting. If you don't like those things, you might not be a great manager. You might be a great leader. You might be able to inspire. You might be the entrepreneur. You might be able to walk in and rock a mic, And, everybody gravitates towards that. But who's the person that's integrating for you? Or vice versa. If you are the integrator, who's out selling the business, who's out showcasing, who's out communicating the business? And this Rocket Fuel book, I thought, was a great model around putting a visionary and an integrator in place. So now no longer do we have co-CEO that get co-decision-making powers. We have CEO, okay, responsible for leadership, management, accountability. And then we have visionary that the CEO rolls to directly. Now, here's the unique thing. The visionary has no direct reports, no people to manage, just helping people problem solve, just helping people with strategy, just helping people with direction. These are the things that a visionary should be good at, responsible for the roadmap, right? Anticipating the future. And the CEO integrates all the good ideas, but here's the key. The CEO, Morgan in this case, she's the tiebreaker. So if we're 50-50 on something and she's like, I don't have the resources to do what you need or do what you want, I respect the plan, I respect the vision, but no, and I don't win the argument, hey, that's part of the game that I signed up to play.
Yeah, now if you're a listener who didn't quite catch this, Morgan is Devan's wife, right? So you're looking for, where is this CEO, where is this integrator that's going to take the vision and integrate it successfully across our organization? How did you figure out that she was the one? So how did you? I mean, obviously you know your wife very well, but like,
yeah,
what was it? What were the signs that just told you, like, well, we don't need to go any further than my wife Morgan because she can do this?
Well, like I said, I had been manufacturing this for 3 years. I planted that seed 3 years beforehand when I first realized it, but only with her. And I told her that, hey, I envisioned this for you. Like here's the trick about this, right? Like I couldn't gas her up. Like she's just really talented. It would be irresponsible of me if, my brother or my best friend or my wife or somebody, because we're a very family-based organization. I mean, like we can talk about that, but it is like very family-based. I mean, to the point where half our office is like couples. And she was just really good at it. I mean, best question asker in a conference room in a business setting I've ever seen in my life. And growing this fast, I've had to sit with a lot of people that can negotiate, and just a bulldog when it comes to getting things done and negotiating and standing her ground. And and obviously caring about the brand, right? It's like it was the perfect storm of things. And to add a cherry on top, and this isn't even close to a reason why she was earned the CEO seat, but now to put Morgan as a female representing an organization whose membership is 90% female was just the added cherry on top. And our culture was so proud of that. Right? And not gonna lie, it's hard for me, to be able to give that seat up and have to step back. And I'd had a couple months there probably where I was just like, you guys don't need me? Am I not useful anymore? Like, what's going on? I'm used to like this, what I think is a great problem to have as a CEO is a revolving door of people just wanting to strategize with you and you welcoming that and battling. And now Morgan gets that. And it's like, what I had to do to really honor this change, because as the leaders of a business, don't make a fundamental change in your leadership unless you're committed to it, right? You've got to be committed from the top down. I don't care if it's a future state org chart or, whatever the case may be, a brand new process, financial reporting mechanism, just be on the same page. That's always really important for us. And so, yeah. And so I started really working that process 3 years ago with Morgan, and slowly and surely, she had on her mind and she just started picking things up over time. And by the time she got in even close to it, she was already walking, already talking, already behaving like the CEO of the business. And, I had to stay home. I stayed home rather for about 3 months just to honor that. That's where I was going with that last point. Sorry, I lost you. I stayed home for like 3 months just to honor that. I was in and out of the office, but not because if that didn't change, if I was still here every day, the behaviors wouldn't change. And so, yeah. And fast forward, we hit our two biggest back-to-back record months in May and June this year. 18.7 million being the biggest one, and Morgan led the way there. And it's really, I'm super proud of her. It's really cool mixed emotions, because it's like her business partner, right, wants to be proud of her, husband wants to be proud of her, the father of her children wants to be proud of her. And so just a lot of different hats that we all wear. Watching her lead the way is amazing.
And growth in terms of locations has scaled a bit faster. If I'm just doing some back of the napkin math, you had 275 locations pre-pandemic. Now you've got over 350. So you've added another 75, which is, I mean, that's, it's pretty normal to grow fast early on. It becomes harder when you've already hit a lot of the market. You've hit the best markets, and it becomes increasingly difficult to have that. If you were doing 50% quarter over quarter growth, let's say revenue wise, or 50% annually in terms of locations, it's not normal for that to just keep going up forever, right? It tends to plateau and then decline. But it seems like that's some pretty fast growth post pandemic, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. And it is 100% it is because of that, right? I don't blow smoke. We get to know each other better. That I'm a straightforward trainer. It is 100% because now when we work on something, everything that we work on matters. Everything that we do, that we prioritize, that we spend our team, our hardworking, ambitious team. I mean, they are some of the sharpest in our industry. And you put them to work on projects, they go get it done, and under my leadership, we tended to chase one too many shiny things here and there. And I hope if you're in that position at home, that you're willing to feel the pain of what it's like to kind of let go of that control in your business temporarily, if it's ready, right? But it's not ever going to be ready unless you at the top, the leader, trusts other people. So, I had to say, who just for the human ego, my perspective wasn't who can do the job as good as I can do the job. Okay. I think would be unfair for everybody involved, unfair for me and for somebody come in. It's like, what a better perspective is who could come in and do the job at 85% as good as I could, so I could go allocate my time to go do 100% of, those A things that we talked about, things that only I can do. And so some of us need those little tricks, because a trait about entrepreneurs is we are very bullish and stubborn, and we like to go in a direction and we don't like to stop. And if anything gets in our way, we tend to run it over, including ourselves, right? Going back to how do you scale after you plateau? Self-awareness. What do you need to do as the person that's in charge? Do you need to step out of the way? Do you need what does the business need? How can you serve the business? Because it can't just be like, you and the business just married for life. That's called a job. You've got to build it.
Right.
Yeah. So
awesome. Well, this has been super helpful. Devin, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me and share these insights. I think this is going to be helpful for not just people who are founders and senior leaders, but even managers of teams. Like, how do you start identifying what's holding your team back, and delegating things to team members that should be delegated, because that's not where you should be focusing your energy. So I think there's gems in here for everybody. So thank you again for taking the time to chat with me.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thanks for taking the interest. We're excited about what we're doing, and congrats on everything y'all are doing as well.
Thank you. Now, for those of you who want to learn more about Devin, I'm sure he'd be happy to connect with you on LinkedIn. It's Devan Kline, Kline. And if you want to learn more about Burn Bootcamp, and whether it's the gym, the organization, franchise opportunities, that's pretty simple. It's just burnbootcamp.com. And I was telling Devin before we signed on to talk to each other, I love, I guess this is your vision statement, right? For the company, which is we envision a world where women love themselves today and are inspired by who they'll be tomorrow. I think that is so cool, and what a great vision to aspire toward achieving. For those of you who tune in regularly, thank you again for listening. And I would like to send a shout out to Caleb West, who produces the podcast. He does a great job. Thank you, Caleb. And until the next time I have an opportunity to interact with you in some way and hopefully serve you, I wish you great success building a world-class organization and sustaining one that makes a positive impact both on the employees or team members in your organization and on our society as a whole. Bye for now.
Right on.